So I've been a portrait photographer for roughly 12 years now and shooting weddings for right around 10 of those 12 years. So right around 4 to 5 years into my photography journey, I started learning how to soften skin, how to remove blemishes, how to reshape people's bodies, make the waist smaller, the double chin, all of those type of things that a lot of my clients who happen to be women were asking me to do. I was honestly getting so many requests for it that that's what kind of prompted me to get into it. But honestly, providing those level of edits to my portrait clients was easy because in a portrait session, I'm typically only delivering somewhere between 12 and 20 edits to a client. So it may take me a couple hours to edit these portraits. I send them out all glam. I call them glam retouch images, and they're happy and they're satisfied. Sometimes I have to do some re-corrections or some re-edits. They give me feedback, I correct it, I send it back out to the client. But once I got into wedding photography, I would treat it like a general event because I was shooting baby showers, I was shooting sweet 16s, I was shooting 5-year-old birthday parties. And once I got into weddings, I started treating my editing process just how I treated my editing process on all of those other events. And a couple years in, there was no issue. The problem became more of an issue for me when I started posting more and more of my portrait work. And then clients were booking me for weddings and they was expecting that portrait look, that soft glam, blemish removed, perfect body, perfect face, makeup, glam style edit on all of their wedding photos, or at least some of them. And it became a thing because what I was showing for my portrait work didn't match for my wedding work. And if I'm being totally honest, I truly created the issue for myself. I was posting nothing but portrait work and my wedding work wasn't matching up to it. So what I decided to do was start doing research. I started looking into all of my favorite wedding photographers' work, and I realized that they were offering a lot of the glam retouch edits that I knew how to do. I knew how to edit just like these other bigger photographers. I just wasn't including it in my package. And I was also thinking, man, I know how long it takes me to edit these photos. And I also know that I'm delivering anywhere from 400 to 600 photos to my wedding clients. I'm thinking to myself at this time, when my prices may have been like $1,500 to do a wedding, maybe $2,000 to do a wedding, I said, it's not feasible for me to edit 400, 500, 600 photos glam retouch style. It would take way too long to do that. There's no way these photographers are delivering 500 glam retouch photos. There's just no way. It's just way too much work. So what I started doing was offering preview galleries to my client. My typical turnaround for a full wedding gallery is 2 months. And I do a preview gallery within the first 2 weeks of the wedding. That way clients aren't waiting 2 months to post and share on social media with their friends, family, also so they can get thank you cards out as soon as possible as well if they choose to do so. When I do my preview galleries, that's when I include usually 80 to 90% of all of the glam retouch images I'm going to include in this entire gallery. For me personally, I'll let you know, I am delivering roughly 35 to 50 glam retouch edits. And a glam retouch portrait to me is skin softening, it is blemish removal, it is any type of body reshaping. So it could be waist, it could be bum, it could be double chin, it could be removing stains or flyaways from hair. All of those things would fall under the glam retouch portrait for me. My standard edit is basically crop, making sure I'm not giving anyone any tilted photos. It's temperature of the photo. So if I like my photos more cool or I like my photos more warm, I need all of them to be in a spectrum of each other that is very even across the board so that my portfolio or my consistency across this wedding is in line. I typically shoot more cool than warm. I don't typically edit photos super warm unless it is purposefully a sunset portrait or something like that. I'm typically more on the cool side than the super warm side. Also, any small blemishes, like if they have something on their shirt and it's just 1 or 2 little clicks to get it out of there, I'll do that in the standard editing process. And I'm also making sure the photo is exposed correctly. So you're not going to get any photos where the highlights are super blown out or the shadows are super dark. It's going to be evenly lit. So that's what a standard edit is to me. Basically anything that I can do in Lightroom would typically fall under the standard editing process. But if I need to open this photo up in the Photoshop to basically do photo manipulation, that's when it crosses over from standard edit to glam restyle edit. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I do think it's very important for wedding photographers to be extremely transparent as possible with our wedding clients. So not only does it say that they'll receive somewhere between 35 and 50 glam retouch edits in their contract, it also says it on the flyer when they're booking with me as well. So it's on the flyer, it's on the contract that they have to sign, and 2 months after when they receive their full gallery, and I typically try to get them out sooner than that. My goal is really to get them out in 4 to 5 weeks, but I give myself a full buffer of 2 months, 8 weeks to get these full galleries out to clients. They'll receive their full gallery, like I said, again, anywhere between 450, 600 photos, and they will have their preview gallery in one bucket, and then they'll have the full gallery in the next. I offer them in the verbiage of the delivery email the option to add additional glam retouch images at a per image price. And for me, that per image price is $25. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but it is a nice way to allow the client to get involved and pick what they deem is worthy of being glam retouch, because also in the contract, it says that I pick what I retouch at my own discretion. Now, in a second, I will explain to you what my own discretion is and what I'm typically choosing to be the glam retouch portraits versus the standard edits. But that client does now have the option to now go through their full gallery. And many a times when they pick additional edits, most people don't even want all of their photos to be glam retouched, to be totally honest with you. Usually they're picking anywhere from maybe an additional 10 to 15, maybe 20 images. So I'm giving them 40 to 50 glam retouch images. They may pick another 10 to 15, and then the other 4 to 450 images are standard edit, and they're completely happy and satisfied with that. Typically, 9 times out of 10, I only post my glam retouch images as well, but that is because most of the time my glam retouch portraits are portraits of either the bride by herself, the groom by himself, the couple as a whole, the wedding party, maybe like first kiss. Basically, most of the images that will fall in either the cocktail hour time or a first look time would be the images that more than likely get selected for glam retouching, because those are typically the staged portraits of the day where I am posing and guiding the client into different looks. Those are typically the photos also that the client posts, that the client typically wants to be on the cover or in their wedding album or to be printed out in their home, are typically the staged portraits. More than likely, if you took a portrait at the reception with bride, groom, and their 2 aunts and an uncle and a cousin, they don't want those photos to be super retouched. They want the photos of themselves to be retouched, either solo or together. They may want some photos with like just all the ladies to be retouched or just all the guys to be retouched, but they're not looking for like your general like table shots to be super glam retouched from my experience. But it is up to us to let our clients know, hey, there's gonna be a portion of your full gallery that is edited this way, and then majority are going to be edited this way, but you will have the option after my own discretion to pick additional ones that you want done glam retouch style as well. I think that helps out both parties. It helps you to not overwork yourself, because honestly, if you glam retouch 500 images, it would take you months to edit all those photos. It's just way too much work. You're not going to want to be a wedding photographer for too much long. Or if you did offer it, your packages would have to be well in excess of 5 figures. These packages would, if I glam retouch 500 wedding images, I would honestly not expect to be paid anything less than $10,000 to $15,000 per wedding. Like, you can book me for a wedding for $3,000 and it goes all the way up to about $8,000 depending on what packages you get. But if I'm glam retouching 400, 500, 600 images, I would probably expect to be paid well above $12,000 to $15,000 if a client is looking for that. But from my experience, most clients are satisfied with a portion being edited that way and also having majority of their other images edited, but just not edited that way. So I do think the best advice I can give for photographers on this topic of standard edit versus glam retouching is to do what's comfortable for you, be confident in yourself, and just be as transparent with your client as possible. I know some phenomenal photographers on YouTube and locally who get paid thousands of dollars per wedding, and they don't offer glam retouching at all. They say it's too much work, they don't like it, they don't like the style. Not every photographer even likes editing their photos that way. I happen to be a portrait photographer who, before I got into wedding photography, photographer deep, I was already doing that style of editing for my client work in studio and on location for portrait sessions. So I already knew how to edit that way, and I also liked the look already. So it worked out in my favor to integrate that option for my wedding clients who wanted it as well. There are some photographers who do studio work, locational work, wedding work. They don't do any glam retouch. They don't do any skin resoftening. They don't do any blemish removal. They want their portraits to look as natural and raw as possible. And if clients like that based on your portfolio, it can honestly work for you. There are photographers who charge more than me who don't do nearly as much work on the back end with their photos as I do, but they've built up their confidence, they've built up their name, they've built up their look that people like. You're not gonna be for everybody. I'm not for everybody, you won't be for everybody. Some of our favorite creators in the world, there are people who are like, oh, I would never want my photos to look like that. Oh, they don't do anything to their photos, they barely edit them. And then there's people who say in the same breath, oh, this seems like they over edit their photos. You know what I mean? So we've all been in that area where people are like, oh, that photo doesn't look like it was edited at all. Or that photo looks like it's too soft, it's too glam. They left no detail in the skin, and people like what they like. So put out your work as much as possible and allow people to attract themselves to you. Just be as transparent as possible. If you know that all of your photos aren't going to look like what you're posting on social media, because you can't post a whole 400 image wedding on an Instagram post, you can only post 8 images, 10 images, you're going to probably pick the stage portraits of the day. Now, I typically, when I post, I'll mix in some stage portraits and I'll mix in some candid shots that I may have not done any skin retouching to at all, but it all looks good together in the carousel. There is honestly no right or wrong way to edit. We all have different styles. Honestly, just sitting here thinking about my progression of being a photographer, when I first learned frequency separation and skin resoftening, I overdid it. In my personal opinion, I overdid it. People loved it in the moment. As a photographer who retouches their images, I've actually noticed over the past 6 or 7 years of being a photo retoucher that I've toned it down. When I first started, I used to overdo it. It was way too soft. I literally got rid of all of the texture out of the skin. It didn't look natural at all. I've backed it down over the years. I've had clients who loved me as a photographer before I knew how to edit this certain way. I had clients who loved me and booked me when I was, in my opinion, overdoing it. And I have clients who love me now where I do it in a retouch way, but it's a more natural retouch. There are people for you no matter where you are in your journey or what you think works for your portfolio. Hopefully this helps somebody who is growing as a photographer like I was and was confused on how can I manage these packages? Am I overworking myself and being underpaid, or should I be providing more value to my clients? What should I offer in these packages? So you don't have to copy what I do directly or exactly, but maybe it'll be a starting point on what you should do for your business. So hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you guys on the next one.